They never learned her name. To the staff of the Sterling Oak, she was just the quiet black waitress. The one who kept her eyes down. The one who flinched when plates shattered. The one they mocked in whispers because silence made them uncomfortable. For 3 months, they laughed at her. They said she was slow. They said she was weak. They said she didn't belong in a room where billionaires discussed mergers over $800 wine. They mistook her lowered gaze for submission. What they didn't know, what they couldn't imagine, was that those same eyes had once stared into an open skull for 7 uninterrupted hours, guiding a scalpel millimeters from catastrophe, saving the life of a U.S. senator's daughter while an entire operating room held its breath. They didn't know the woman they humiliated had once been called a prodigy by Johns Hopkins. Because the Sterling Oak was very good at making people disappear. Crystal chandeliers bathed the dining room in golden light. Soft jazz hummed beneath the clink of silverware. Power sat comfortably at every table. And in that world, invisibility was enforced. The quiet waitress folded napkins with surgical precision near the kitchen doors, her hands steady, her shoulders slightly hunched, as if bracing for an impact that never came. Or maybe one she remembered too well. "Look at her," someone whispered. "Like a ghost." Laughter followed. It always did. She heard every word. Her hearing had been trained in rooms where a single missed sound meant death. Where silence was more dangerous than alarms. But here she absorbed the cruelty without reaction. Until 7:58 p.m. Until the most powerful man in the room. The billionaire everyone feared. The man whose name made managers sweat and investors lean forward. Collapsed at table 12. His fork slipped from his hand. His face drained of color. His body hit the floor. And in that moment, as servers froze, as phones came out, as authority panicked, the room filled with one terrifying realization. No one knew what to do. No one. Except the woman they'd spent months pretending didn't exist. And as she stepped forward, as her trembling hands went still, as her voice cut through the chaos with calm, terrifying certainty, the Sterling Oak was about to learn the truth. The quiet black waitress they humiliated was the only person in the room who could save a life. And what happened next would expose far more than a medical emergency. The Sterling Oak did not look like a place where cruelty lived. At least not on the surface. Crystal chandeliers hung low and warm, refracting light across white linen and polished silver. The walls were paneled in dark wood that smelled faintly of age, money, and quiet power. Soft jazz floated through the air, not loud enough to interrupt conversations, just present enough to remind everyone they were somewhere expensive. This was the kind of restaurant where people didn't raise their voices. They raised eyebrows. They raised glasses. They raised capital. And standing just outside that world, close enough to serve it, far enough to never belong, was Zora. She stood at the service station near the kitchen doors, folding linen napkins into perfect triangles. One crease. Rotate. Another crease. Sharp. Precise. Identical. Every movement measured, economical, controlled. Not rushed. Never rushed. At 31, she should have looked young. But something about her posture made people assume otherwise. Her shoulders curved inward slightly, as if she were constantly making room for others. Her chin stayed lowered, eyes fixed somewhere just below chest level, never defiant, never challenging. Never seen as human. "Jesus," Megan muttered from the bar, adjusting her lipstick in the mirrored back panel. "Does she ever blink?" A few quiet snickers followed. Zora didn't react. She rarely did. For 3 months, she had mastered the art of not reacting. 3 months of learning how to disappear in plain sight. To the guests, she was furniture with legs. A presence that delivered water and vanished. To the staff, she was an inconvenience, slow, awkward, unsettling in her quiet. Silence made people uncomfortable. And uncomfortable people became cruel. "Look at the ghost," Megan whispered again, not even bothering to lower her voice this time. "I swear, Derek dropped a tray yesterday like 3 feet from her, and she flinched like a bomb went off." "That's because she's useless," Derek replied flatly. Derek Grayson, the floor manager, prowled the dining room the way predators did, slow, deliberate, eyes always scanning for weakness. His suit was tailored just tight enough to signal authority. His voice carried without needing to rise. She froze last night when I asked her to describe the wine pairing for table 8, he continued, flipping through the reservation book. 5 seconds. 5. In this business, that's an eternity. Zora heard every word. She always did. Her hearing had been trained in environments where the faintest change in rhythm meant disaster. Where a shift in breathing could precede cardiac arrest. Where silence in the wrong moment could kill someone. Here, she used that same training to survive humiliation. Her fingers tightened slightly around the napkin. Just for a moment. Her knuckles paled beneath her brown skin. Then she relaxed them. Control mattered. Derek didn't even look at her as he spoke again. She's a diversity hire. Has to be. The words landed with the dull familiarity of an old bruise being pressed. Zora finished the napkin. Set it down. Reached for the next one. She did not defend herself. She never did. Because defense invited attention. And attention invited questions. And questions led to recognition. Recognition was dangerous. She had learned that the hard way. Zora! Derek's voice cut through the dining room noise like a blade. She turned instantly. Yes, sir. Her voice was soft, but steady. Not trembling. Never trembling when she spoke. That was another thing people misread. They thought her quiet voice meant fear. It didn't. It meant restraint. Table 5. Mr. Castano just made eye contact with you, Derek said, irritation sharpening his tone. Do not look guests in the eye. You're here to serve, not socialize. These people are worth more than your annual salary. Yes, sir. Her head dipped lower. As she passed Megan with a tray of champagne flutes, Megan leaned in close. Nice shoes, she whispered, just loud enough to be heard. Thrift store. A pause. Oh wait, Megan added with a smirk. Of course they are. Laughter rippled softly among the servers near the bar. Zora kept walking. Luke, the 18-year-old busboy with kind eyes and a nervous smile, appeared beside her near the service station. Don't listen to them, he said quietly, straightening silverware that didn't need fixing. They're just like that. It's fine, Zora replied. But her jaw tightened. Just slightly. The kind of tension you only noticed if you knew how to look. Elle did. The doorman had been at the Sterling Oak for 30 years. Long enough to recognize real power. Long enough to know when someone was pretending not to have it. As Zora passed through the lobby to retrieve more linens, Earl caught her eye. He gave her a subtle nod. Not pity. Something else. Recognition. Zora looked away quickly. She didn't trust recognition. The past lived in recognition. The past lived in camera flashes and courtrooms and whispered headlines. Surgeon blamed for billionaire heir's death. She could still see the courtroom if she let herself. The way Marcus Whitmore sat stone-faced in the front row. The way his mother cried for the cameras. The way her own lawyer's hand rested on her shoulder like an apology. Zora blinked the memory away and smoothed a tablecloth that was already perfect. 3 months. She had lasted 3 months in this place. 3 months of shrinking herself. 3 months of convincing herself that this was all she deserved. The Tuesday evening service moved with mechanical precision. Table 7, hedge fund manager. $3,000 suit. Didn't look up when he snapped his fingers. Water. No ice. Lemon on the side. No please. No thank you. Of course, sir. Her voice barely rose above the hum of the room. 20 minutes later, Derek intercepted her near the kitchen doors. You took 7 minutes on that pomade, he said sharply. 7. I was decanting it properly, Zora replied quietly. Did I ask for excuses? Derek's voice rose just enough for nearby tables to notice. Megan will handle your section for the rest of the night. You're on backup. Backup. Water. Bread. Clearing. Her best section, gone. Yes, sir. She flinched when he raised his voice. She hated herself for that. The break room at 9:47 p.m. was supposed to be empty. Zora sat on the worn couch, eyes closed, counting her breaths. Not to calm herself. To stop the ringing. Then voices filtered through the door. Megan. Another server. I looked her up, Megan said. There was a trial. 3 years ago. A pause. Wait, are you serious? That Zora? Yeah. Surgeon or something. Killed some rich guy's brother during an operation. Laughter. That explains why she's so jumpy. Zora's hands clenched. Inside her locker, behind her purse, was a small framed photograph. 8 young residents in surgical scrubs. Bright-eyed. Smiling. She was 28 in that photo. She didn't recognize herself anymore. For a moment, just a moment, she considered leaving. Walking out. Never coming back. Then she thought of rent. 6 days away. She closed the locker. Hung up her coat. Returned to the floor. Each step felt like walking underwater. And that was when the reservation appeared on the board. Table 12, VIP, 8 p.m. Stephen Parker himself emerged from his office, clapping his hands for attention. Listen up, he said. Major investor. Everything flawless. Derek straightened. Megan smiled. Zora felt relief. And something else. Disappointment. Because somewhere deep inside her, buried beneath months of humiliation, something stirred. And she didn't yet know it. But Act 1 was over. And the night was about to demand everything she had been trying not to be. The man at table 12 arrived without an entourage. No bodyguards. No assistants whispering in his ear. No need to announce himself. Yet the room shifted the moment he stepped inside. Stephen Parker straightened so quickly his chair scraped the floor. Derek's posture snapped to attention. Even Megan stopped smiling, her expression recalibrating into something more cautious, more reverent. Because power, real power, didn't need noise. Elias Hawthorne removed his coat with calm precision and handed it to Earl at the door. Mid-50s. Tall. Athletic without trying. The kind of man whose stillness commanded space. His face was sharp, but not cruel. His eyes, gray, observant, took in the room the way surgeons studied scans. Looking for weaknesses. Stephen rushed forward. Mr. Hawthorne, welcome back to the Sterling Oak. We're honored. Hawthorne nodded politely. Not warmly. Not coldly either. Thank you, he said. Table 12. Not a request. As he passed through the dining room, conversation softened. Fork slowed. Even the jazz pianist hesitated, fingers hovering for a fraction of a second longer than necessary. Zora was refilling water near the edge of the room when she felt it. That familiar sensation. The air tightening. The kind of quiet that came before alarms. She glanced up, just briefly. And her eyes met his. Only for a second. But something passed between them. Not recognition. Assessment. Hawthorne didn't look away first. Derek saw it. He moved fast. Zora, he snapped under his breath, intercepting her path. Kitchen. Now. She followed him without question. In the narrow hallway near the pass, Derek leaned in close, voice low and venomous. You do not make eye contact with VIPs, he hissed. Ever. Especially not him. I didn't mean. You don't mean anything, Derek cut in. You're invisible. Or you're gone. Which do you prefer? Zora swallowed. Invisible, she said. Derek stepped back. Good. Because if you embarrass us tonight, I will personally make sure you never work in this city again. She nodded once. Yes, sir. But as she turned away, her chest tightened, not with fear. With something colder. Recognition. Not of him. Of the stakes. The kitchen roared behind her, orders shouted, plates clattering, but her mind drifted to another room. Another night. Another man lying motionless beneath surgical lights while monitors screamed. She forced the memory down. You're not that person anymore. She repeated it silently. You're not allowed to be. Table 12 was assigned to Megan. Of course it was. Megan glided over, posture suddenly flawless, voice syrupy sweet. Good evening, Mr. Hawthorne. May I start you with? I'll have water, he said. Still. No ice. Megan blinked, momentarily thrown off. Of course. Sparkling or still, he replied. Room temperature. Zora froze where she stood. Her fingers tightened around the tray. She knew that request. Knew it the way pilots knew warning lights. Hawthorne scanned the room again as Megan turned to retrieve the water. His gaze landed, briefly, on Zora. Something in his eyes narrowed. Not curiosity. Concern. 10 minutes later, Megan returned, placing the glass down with a bright smile. Hawthorne lifted it. Paused. Set it back down. This is cold, he said. Megan laughed lightly. Oh. I'm so sorry. I'll replace it. She rushed away. From the service station, Zora watched his hands. The faint tremor in his fingers. The shallow breath he didn't seem to notice. Her heart rate spiked. No. Don't. She looked away. 2 minutes later, Hawthorne pressed his palm flat against the table. Subtle. Controlled. But Zora saw it. Because she had trained herself to see things others missed. Megan returned with a new glass. Here you go. He took one sip. Then another. Then he stopped. His jaw tightened. Are you all right, sir? Megan asked, her smile faltering. I'm fine, Hawthorne said. But his voice lacked conviction. Zora's breath caught. She moved without permission. Crossed the floor with her tray like it was instinct, not rebellion. Excuse me, she said softly, stopping beside the table. Sir, may I? Megan turned sharply. Zora, what are you doing? Zora didn't look at her. Her eyes were on Hawthorne's face. Your pupils, Zora said quietly. They're uneven. Derek appeared from nowhere. That's enough. I've seen this before, Zora continued, her voice calm but firm. Your left hand is colder than your right. Your breathing is shallow. And you're compensating. Hawthorne stared at her. Hard. The room seemed to shrink. You should sit back, Zora said. And loosen your collar. Derek grabbed her arm. You're out of line. Hawthorne raised one finger. Derek froze. Let her speak, Hawthorne said. Zora felt the weight of the entire restaurant settle onto her shoulders. I don't think this is indigestion, she said. And I don't think it can wait. Silence. Then Hawthorne's face tightened in pain. Just briefly. But enough. His glass tipped. Water spilled across the linen. Megan gasped. Sir. Hawthorne tried to stand. He didn't make it. His knees buckled, body folding forward as the chair scraped violently backward. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Panic exploded. Call 911, someone shouted. Stephen Parker rushed forward, face pale. Elias, can you hear me? Zora was already kneeling. Hands steady. Voice low. Sir, look at me, she said. Stay with me. Derek backed away, stunned. Megan stood frozen, hands shaking. Zora checked his pulse. Her fingers knew exactly where to go. Too slow. Too irregular. She sucked in a breath. Does anyone have aspirin? She asked sharply. No response. Stephen stammered. We have a first aid kit. It won't be enough, Zora said. She looked up. Met Earl's eyes across the room. Clear space, she ordered. Earl moved instantly. Tables were pushed aside. Guests stood, murmuring. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, too far. Zora placed 2 fingers against Hawthorne's neck again. Her face hardened. This isn't a heart attack, she said. Derek blinked. What? It's a ruptured aneurysm, Zora replied. And if we wait for the ambulance, he won't make it. The room went dead quiet. Stephen whispered, What are you saying? Zora didn't hesitate. I'm saying, she said, if someone doesn't act now. She looked down at Hawthorne. Then back up. He dies. And in that moment, kneeling on the floor of a luxury restaurant, surrounded by people who had spent months tearing her down, Zora stood at the edge of the life she had buried. The one she swore she would never touch again. And the night was about to force her hand. Time slowed. Not because it actually did, clocks ticked. Plates clinked. Guests whispered nervously. Silverware scraped against fine china. But for Zora, the world had narrowed to one single point: Hawthorne's trembling body. Every second felt heavier than the last. She froze, just for a fraction of a second, recalling the courtroom 3 years ago. The lights. The cameras. The faces carved in stone. Marcus Whitmore's brother, Nathaniel, lying under surgical lamps. And her hands, which had once saved lives, now blamed for death. She could step back. She could let Derek enforce protocol. Let Megan call 911. Let the paramedics take over. She could vanish again. But the air shifted. Hawthorne's eyes flickered, lips whispering sounds only she could hear. Not panic. Not fear. Recognition. Understanding. Please, he mouthed, almost imperceptibly, almost too quiet to believe. No one else heard. But she did. Her body tensed. Memories surged, the OR, the emergency calls, the beeping monitors, the seconds that had once made the difference between life and death. This was no longer a restaurant. This was a battlefield. And she was the only one trained for it. Derek stepped closer, authoritative, venomous. You're fired if you touch him, he hissed, voice low but sharp. Important people, Zora. Don't overstep. Zora's gaze didn't waver. Important people can die if you do nothing, she replied. Derek's face paled. He had authority, yes. But he did not have knowledge. She assessed the scene instinctively. Airway obstructed, early anaphylactic reaction. Pupils dilated. Weak pulse. Cold extremities. No trained staff present. Only terrified servers. She moved with calm precision, ignoring Derek's outstretched arm. Step aside, she said, voice low, cold, controlled. The room held its breath. The murmurs of wealthy patrons died down. Phones raised. Every eye followed her hands. But Zora didn't see them. She saw Hawthorne. Her hands found his neck, checking pulses, positioning, breathing. Every movement measured, deliberate, precise. This isn't just a crisis, she murmured to herself. It's catastrophic if delayed. Luke, the young busbar, appeared like a shadow at her elbow. What do you need? He whispered, hands shaking. Steak knife. Ballpoint pen. Alcohol, she said. Calm, exact. Every word deliberate. Now. Megan froze. Derek's eyes widened. She's experimenting. Derek shouted. Zora looked at him. Not angry. Not pleading. Calculating. You do not understand. Move, she said, her voice slicing through his authority like a scalpel. Seconds ticked. Luke returned. Hands trembling. Knife in one, pen in the other, alcohol in a small vial. Zora moved like a surgeon in a trauma bay. Every action was deliberate. Disassembled the pen. Sterilized the knife. Positioned Hawthorne's head. Assessed the swelling in his throat. Her mind raced, not with panic, but with cold focus. Earl, clear the crowd, she instructed. Table 12 only. Everyone else back. The doorman moved instantly, ushering onlookers away. Zora took a breath. She couldn't afford hesitation. Not now. With the precision of a decade of surgical training, she located the cricothyroid membrane. Her fingers trembled, not with fear, but with the force it took to remain calm. She made the incision. 2 centimeters. Exact. Controlled. The room seemed to contract, every sound muffled except for Hawthorne's ragged breathing and the sharp, clinical movements of her hands. Then, a gasp. Air rushed. His chest heaved. Color began to return to lips that had gone pale in seconds. Welcome back, she said quietly. Not for drama. Not for anyone else. For him. The room erupted around her, but Zora remained focused. Derek gaped. Megan's hands shook. Guests whispered. Phones recorded. Cameras swiveled. But she didn't hear them. She only monitored vitals, checked airway, ensured no complication, just as she had done thousands of times before. And in that moment, the impossible truth became clear to everyone. The quiet, invisible black waitress was more than anyone had ever imagined. She was Dr. Zora Mitchell. A surgeon. A prodigy. A woman who had survived scandal, humiliation, and exile. And she was in charge. Turning point. As Hawthorne stabilized, Zora scanned the room. Marcus Whitmore, standing at table 9, froze. Recognition and horror etched into his face. He knew her. And he knew the truth. Zora's chest tightened. 3 years of lies, courtroom battles, public humiliation, all of it converged in this one moment. Her hands were steady. Her voice was calm. But inside, the memories churned like a storm. She had 2 choices. Walk away. Preserve anonymity. Let the system take over. Avoid confrontation. Avoid risk. Step fully into the identity that had once destroyed her. Reveal herself. Accuse. Demand justice. Hawthorne's fingers tightened on her wrist. Glassy, unfocused, but deliberate. Do it, he whispered. Only she could hear. You're the only one who can. And she understood. There would be no walking away. Not this time. The room waited. Breathless. Time seemed suspended. The invisible woman had chosen. She was about to reclaim everything. The room had gone silent. Not quiet in the polite sense. Not the polite hush of a restaurant expecting excellence. This was the silence of shock. Of realization. The kind of silence that makes every whisper, every heartbeat, every clink of a fork feel amplified. Zora's eyes scanned the room like a surgeon assessing trauma. Marcus Whitmore stood frozen near table 9. Face pale. Jaw clenched. Every inch of his posture radiating a dangerous cocktail of guilt, fear, and calculated self-control. 3 years of lies, manipulation, and public betrayal were about to collide in front of dozens of witnesses. Cameras already rolling, phones recording, the social media echo chamber ready to amplify every second. Zora crouched beside Hawthorne. His breathing was steadier now, but fragile. Still vulnerable. Still dependent. And he looked at her with a silent plea, "Do not fail me now." She exhaled, long and deliberate, letting the authority she had buried for so long seep into her voice. "Everyone, stay back," she said. The calm, controlled timbre of a doctor commanding an operating theater. "This isn't over." Derek froze. Megan blinked. Guests shuffled uncomfortably. Even Stephen Parker, who had watched countless displays of wealth, power, and control, felt the room shift beneath him. Zora stood, slowly, deliberately. She met Marcus's eyes first. Not pleading. Not apologetic. Cold, surgical focus. "You," she said. Short. Precise. "I need to speak to you. Now." Marcus's lips parted, but no words came. He tried to regain composure, a mask of billionaire arrogance slipping. "You remember Nathaniel Whitmore," Zora continued, voice rising just enough for the room to hear. "My license. The trial. The media circus. The death you blamed me for?" Whispers spread. Phones swiveled. Heads turned. "I do," Marcus said finally, his voice low, cautious. "Yes. You do. And yet here you are," Zora said, stepping closer, her hands steady at her sides. "Sitting at a table, smiling, sipping wine, thinking your past is buried." The room collectively held its breath. "I know what you did," she said, cold as steel. "You killed your brother, Nathaniel. You refused the treatment that could have saved him. You made me your scapegoat. You destroyed my career, my reputation, my life. And you did it all to cover your cowardice." Gasps echoed. Guests shifted. Phones captured every word. Marcus's face hardened. "That's not true." Zora cut him off with a calm precision that only someone who had operated under impossible pressure could muster. "Yes, it is. And now," she gestured to Hawthorne, "you tried the same thing again tonight. A designer toxin. Expensive. Difficult to obtain. Targeted. You attempted to kill him to cover something. Perhaps greed, perhaps revenge. It doesn't matter. I stopped it. I saved his life." Stephen Parker's jaw dropped. Derek staggered back as the reality hit him. Megan hid her face behind her hands. Luke's eyes were wide, trembling, but trusting. Hawthorne, still weak, turned to Zora. His voice barely a whisper. You were right. You always were. Marcus staggered. The room seemed to constrict. Every observer, every server, every patron now understood. The invisible waitress, the one mocked, belittled, dismissed, was in fact the only person capable of stopping a death in front of their eyes. Zora's voice remained steady, commanding. Do you want to explain yourself, Marcus? Or shall I tell them everything? The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Marcus's composure cracked. His fingers twitched. Beads of sweat glistened on his temples. He opened his mouth, closed it again. Every second of hesitation confirmed guilt to the room. The silence was broken only by Zora's precise instructions. Earl, ensure no one leaves. Phones down for emergency documentation only. Megan, monitor vitals. Luke, prepare activated charcoal N4 line. Guests froze, unsure whether to watch or retreat. Cameras rolled. Phones recorded. The story they had witnessed in fragments, the collapse, the panic, was about to be revealed in full. I recommended an experimental treatment, Zora continued, voice steady, slicing through the tension like a scalpel. 3 other specialists recommended it. But Nathaniel Whitmore died because you refused it. You wanted control. You wanted to hide your failure. And the world needed a scapegoat. That scapegoat was me. Marcus's face whitened. You can't prove that. Zora crouched slightly, meeting his gaze with unyielding intensity. I can, she said. And tonight, everyone here is the witness. Every camera, every phone, every guest. You don't get to hide anymore. Hawthorne's hand found hers briefly. Strength in his gaze, reassurance in a room that had gone silent with fear. Zora glanced at him, then back at Marcus. The full weight of the moment pressed down. Now, she said. Are you going to stop lying? Or should I continue? Marcus swallowed hard, the billionaire armor cracking. His face betrayed the guilt, shame, and fear he had meticulously hidden for years. And in that moment, the invisible became inescapably visible. Guests shifted. Phones recorded. The whispers of disbelief turned into audible shock. Zora remained calm, methodical, surgical. Every word calculated to expose the truth while maintaining control of the life still in her hands. Hawthorne coughed, color returning. She monitored him, adjusting the 4-line, watching every vital sign, but her eyes never left Marcus. Your actions have consequences, she said quietly but firmly. Not just for the victims you've harmed, but for everyone who trusts you. And right now, the world is watching. Marcus's lips trembled. No words came. He realized fully that this moment was irreversible. Zora's presence filled the room. Not a waitress. Not a victim. A surgeon. A survivor. A force of justice. The first of the major revelations had landed. The dominoes had begun to fall. And nothing would ever be the same again. The Sterling Oak had transformed. Once a temple of wealth, elegance, and shallow superiority, it was now a theater of tension. Every chandelier cast dramatic shadows across the polished marble floors. Every whispered gasp bounced off the walls. Silverware lay abandoned. Wine glasses trembled like fragile hearts. Zora's eyes scanned the room. Hawthorne's chest rose and fell, weak but stable. Yet the danger hadn't passed. Every muscle in her body remained taut, primed for action. Every breath counted. Every second could tip the scales. Marcus Whitmore stood frozen, his gaze darting between the witnesses, the cameras, and Zora. His carefully constructed empire of arrogance and denial was cracking in real time. The guests murmured, unsure whether to flee or watch history unfold. Derek, normally a predator of control, looked like a man witnessing a force beyond his comprehension. Megan trembled, clutching the first aid kit, while Luke's hands shook as he followed Zora's precise instructions. Zora crouched beside Hawthorne, her hands moving with surgical precision. Her voice was calm but absolute. Earl, clear the floor. Only essential personnel. Move now. The doorman obeyed instantly, ushering patrons and servers back. Phones were still raised, capturing every second, but Zora didn't care. This wasn't for show. It was for life. She glanced up at Marcus. "You know what you did," she said, tone cutting through the tension like a scalpel. "And everyone here is watching now. I saved him once tonight. But the consequences of your actions won't end there. Do you understand?" Marcus opened his mouth. No words emerged. Hawthorne's hand found hers. A silent anchor in the storm. "Focus," she whispered to him. "Just focus on breathing. We've got this." The seconds stretched into eternity. Hawthorne's vitals were precarious. His pupils dilated, then contracted erratically. His blood pressure wavered. Zora's mind raced through every possible complication: organ failure, delayed toxin response, shock, airway compromise. Yet her hands never faltered. She barked out instructions. "Luke, activated charcoal, now. Megan, for line, monitor vitals. Earl, prep oxygen, be ready for emergency transport." Each action was deliberate. Every word a command. Guests watched, mouths open, as a drama more intense than any theater unfolded before them. Not a play. Not fiction. Reality. Life and death. Marcus stepped forward, trying to regain control. "You're experimenting. You." Zora didn't flinch. Not once. She met his gaze, ice and fire in equal measure. "You destroyed my life to protect your secrets. You humiliated me. You thought I was nothing. And tonight, you tried to do the same to him. But I will not allow it." A hush fell over the room. Phones captured her every word. Whispers rippled. "Who is she? That's the waitress? The one from the news?" Hawthorne coughed, his color returning slightly. Zora's focus never wavered. "This is a trauma bay," she said softly. "Not a dining room. Everyone else, step back. Now." Marcus froze. Derek froze. Megan and Luke obeyed without question. Time slowed further. Zora administered the treatment with the precision only a surgeon could achieve. Activated charcoal. 4 medications. Careful monitoring. Each action measured, deliberate, life-saving. She glanced at Marcus again. "Your lies, your arrogance, your cowardice, it ends now. You will not harm him. You will not escape accountability. And the world is watching." Marcus's eyes flickered with panic. The facade of wealth and power crumbled. For the first time, he realized that no amount of money, influence, or control could rewrite the truth. Hawthorne's body convulsed, blood pressure dropping dangerously. Zora's heart raced, but not with fear. Focus. Clarity. Years of surgical training and crisis management condensed into this one moment. "Stay with me," she whispered. "You can fight this. I'll make sure of it." The room seemed to hold its breath. Cameras whirred. Phones recorded. Witnesses leaned forward, caught between awe and disbelief. Zora's hands moved automatically, precise, controlled. She stabilized the airway. Adjusted the 4. Monitored vitals. Calculated doses. Every movement a dance between life and death. Hawthorne's fingers tightened around hers again. Glassy eyes locked onto hers. A silent plea. "Only you can save me." And in that moment, Zora understood fully, this wasn't just about medicine. It was about redemption. It was about reclaiming the life, the career, the identity stolen from her. It was about proving to herself and the world that she was more than they ever imagined. Then, finally, a shift. Hawthorne's breathing steadied. Color returned to his lips. The convulsions slowed. The immediate threat passed. But the emotional intensity of the room skyrocketed. Every eye saw her. Every phone recorded her. Every witness realized the truth. The quiet, submissive, invisible waitress was the woman who had saved a life that no one else could. The emotional peak had arrived. Shock. Awe. Respect. Fear. Triumph. Marcus remained frozen. Derek's authority shattered. Megan and Luke stared in disbelief. The patrons murmured. Whispers became audible gasps. Zora straightened. For the first time tonight, she allowed herself a small exhale. But she did not smile. There was still work to do. Because now, the battle had shifted. From life-saving to justice. The Sterling Oak was quiet now. Not quiet in the polite sense, not the polite hum of Manhattan elegance. This was quiet in the aftermath of chaos, the hush that settles over a room where power has been upended and truth has finally spoken. Hawthorne sat upright, for still in place, oxygen mask removed. His breaths were steady now. Color had returned to his face. Weak, exhausted, but alive. Alive because one person, the one everyone had dismissed, mocked, ignored, had chosen to act when no one else could. Zora stood beside him, her hands still slightly trembling from the adrenaline, but her posture was confident, commanding. She wasn't a submissive waitress anymore. She was a surgeon, a survivor, a force the world had underestimated. Marcus Whitmore remained frozen near table 9. His face was pale, eyes wide, and hands shaking ever so slightly. The billion-dollar mask of arrogance had fallen away. For once, he could not command, bribe, or manipulate. The witnesses, their phones, the cameras, they had seen everything. His power was meaningless. Stephen Parker approached cautiously, his usual executive composure replaced with awe. Dr. Mitchell. Zora. I had no idea. I am so sorry. Please stay. I'll triple your salary. I'll make Derek apologize. Anything you want. Zora shook her head slowly, calm, measured. I don't need apologies. I don't need compensation. I need this to mean something. She turned, looking around the room at the staff, the busboy Luke, Megan, and even the silent observers who had witnessed her resolve. Each of them had a front-row seat to her reclamation of authority, skill, and dignity. Your apology is yours to keep, she said quietly. Actions matter more than words. Derek tried to speak, to assert authority, but Zora didn't even glance his way. His power was gone. Respect had shifted. She had earned it, not because she was noticed, but because she chose to act when everyone else hesitated. Earl, the doorman who had silently recognized her from the start, approached. His voice low, respectful, almost reverent. Been watching you for 3 months. Knew you were someone. Could see it in your eyes. He handed her a small card. Cad asked me to give you this. Wants to speak with you. Private room upstairs. Zora turned the card over in her fingers, the weight of choice pressing down. She could leave, disappear into the Manhattan night, invisible again. Or she could face what had been waiting for her, what had been promised, what could restore everything she'd lost. She climbed the stairs. Hawthorne sat in a leather chair, for still in place, exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Yet he looked up at her as she entered, a small, tired smile tugging at his lips. Dr. Mitchell, or do you prefer Zora? He asked, voice soft. I don't know anymore, she admitted, sinking into the chair across from him. I own the Sterling Oak, he said, casually but with deliberate weight. Through shell companies. I've been watching you for 18 months. I was at your trial. I knew the Whitmores were lying. Analysts confirmed what you suspected. You were right about the experimental treatment. Marcus killed his brother through cowardice. It then destroyed you to hide his guilt. Why didn't you speak out? Zora paused. The question hung in the air. Who would have believed her? A stranger? A woman whose license had been taken, whose career had been crushed? You tell me, she said finally. I needed to understand who you'd become, Hawthorne replied. Whether the surgeon Johns Hopkins called a prodigy was gone, or just hiding. What do you want? Her eyes narrowed, weighing the offer carefully. She could regain her life, her license, her reputation, but at what cost? Accepting his help meant compromise. Submitting to the power of another billionaire felt wrong. And yet, the opportunity to reclaim everything she had lost. There's one condition, she said at last. Name it. Any technology we develop, any treatment, any advancement, goes to public hospitals first. Not just the wealthy. Everyone. Not just those who can afford it. Hawthorne smiled, a small, genuine grin. Deal. 6 months later, Dr. Zora Mitchell walked through the emergency department at Mount Sinai, white coat pristine, hands steady, eyes sharp and commanding. She trained residents on emergency toxicology, turning her worst experience into lessons that could save countless lives. Dr. Mitchell, a young resident asked, eyes wide with curiosity, "Is it true you once performed a cricothyrotomy in a restaurant with a steak knife?" Zora smiled. Not the fearful, submissive smile of Zora Miller, the invisible waitress, but the confident, self-assured smile of someone who had reclaimed her identity and her purpose. "Yes," she said. "And I'd do it again if I must. Because a doctor's oath doesn't end at the hospital doors. And skill doesn't vanish just because someone tried to take it from you." Zora Mitchell had been humiliated, mocked, and dismissed. She had lost everything that defined her. Yet she chose to act. To save a life. To reclaim herself. And in that choice, she became unstoppable. The cameras may have captured her triumph. The witnesses may have spread her story. But Zora didn't need recognition. She had regained what mattered most: agency, skill, and the courage to be visible when it counted. The world had underestimated her. They had mocked her. But she had survived. She had acted. And she had risen. Dr. Zora Mitchell was whole again. Not because someone powerful decided she deserved it, but because she chose it. The Sterling Oak, the chaos, the betrayal, all of it had led to this. And she would never be invisible again.